And this is the Barry Foster Show, not in the beautiful Ridge Florist Studios in the city of Charm, Avon Park, but on the phone with John Larsen, who is on assignment. And John's assignment is to attend as many dirt track races as possible over the next 3 weeks or so. John, good to have you with us, my friend.
Hey, good morning.
Now, over the past weekend, did you get a chance to test out any dirt tracks up there in the Great Midwest?
Well, on Saturday, I went to Wasion. There's a track called Oakshade there. I've never been there, but unfortunately, they've had so much rain up here. You cannot believe. This is really farm country. When you get up here, this is farm country, and the farms that I've driven by are, some of them are still flooded, and like corn is a big crop up here, along with soybeans and corn. If you can see it in the fields. The highest that I seen it was maybe 2 or 3 inches. Most of it was, if it's there, and most of it was washed out, was like 1 inch high. And you know the old saying, knee high by the 4th of July, but there's very little chance that a lot of this corn is going to be knee high by the 4th of July.
So instead of
Now I
being
did
very
go,
helpful, very helpful, the rain has not been helpful at all.
no, not here. I mean, they've been inundated. I talked to some folks and they said it has been nothing but rain for the last couple of months. And I can believe it by what I see when I drive, especially in a country where you got farmland, which, the farm fields are certainly flat. And you can see if they have water, it's just still standing in the fields in some cases, but it's been so heavy, the crops just haven't been able to grow. And I suspect that either they planted very late or they've planted maybe a second crop in some situations because of the rain factor.
So, John, let me ask you: as you've toured there, you've seen many Trump signs, many signs of support for the current administration.
I did at one place I was at. It was a small community that I stayed at. I think it was Friday night. When I left Saturday morning, there was a group at the overpass on I think it was I-75, maybe about 40 people or so. They were all Trump signs, and it was, they were celebrating Flag Day and that kind of thing. Of course, I honked my horn when I drove by. But then I'll tell you, when I was in Wasion Sunday morning or Saturday morning, okay, when I got there Saturday, I was shocked. Now, this Wasion is farm country. I used to live not far down the road in Pioneer, Ohio, and this is farm country. And there was a group of about maybe 75 or 80 people, and they were all no kings, no kings, no kings, no kings. And I was really surprised to see that crowd out in the middle of the country, if you will, and essentially with, anti-Trump signs and anti-Trump rhetoric and all of the hooting and hollering and that goes on.
Well, John, I'll tell you that the Democrats and these other radical organizations have been very skilled and we've seen the things that they put out for Sebring in getting people into the area. We did a scan, and a lot of those people I didn't know who they were. I don't know whether they're from around here or not, but they had done a great job. And it occurs to me that the left, the people on the radical left, love to display their victimization, and they really feel like the money train is drying up. That their support in terms of being able to use whatever bathroom they want to use to proclaim whether they're a certain gender or even whether they're a human or an animal or what, those things, the tide is turning on them, and so they're desperate to get out there amongst their friends and comrades and show off their victimization. So it does not surprise me that they're able to rally every last person they can get their hands on to go out there and show it. But if that support had been legitimate, we would not have Donald Trump in the White House today.
Well, that's probably a big part of it. But again, I was kind of surprised because having lived up here for a few years, knowing that, and the folks that I worked with back a number of years ago here were darn right down home folks that were patriotic in almost every situation. but I was just kind of surprised out here. I could see it in when I traveled through Cincinnati and Atlanta and that kind of places. I could say, all right, I understand why those folks are out here, but I was kind of surprised to see that many people out in what I call farm country or what some people call flyover country.
Yeah, absolutely. But and there was problems in a lot of these uh, no kings, as they call it, demonstrations out in Salt Lake City. That bystander got shot and killed. That Arthur Falusa Alu got shot by one of their own peacekeepers. They had their own police force or enforcing force, and that guy Arturo Gambano has been arrested. A member of the peacekeeping team for this shooting, and it's that's going to unravel. There's a lot of things that happened, and I think that as this comes to light, you're going to find out more about this. And I think that on the conservative side, our day of No Kings is going to come on Independence Day when we celebrate the ousting of King George from the United States and declaring our independence as a free nation.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big step forward. I will, jumping back a little bit when you asked about what I did. Well, I did manage to go. I was in Findlay, Ohio last night, and there's a track there called Millstream, and I did get there, and thank goodness they were able to race. Although they said that they've been inundated with rain. Most of the tracks up here, and this track here, Millstream, which operates, it just, I guess it was shut down for a number of years. It just got going again last year on a limited schedule. They're running a little bigger schedule this year, but they were rained out their first 2 weeks of the season. So last night was really their first racing night of the season, and it's already, here we are closing in on the mid part of June.
Well, and I think we need to reemphasize that these are dirt tracks, and
Oh yeah,
anything with dirt or clay is very, very uh, resilient to what kind of wet weather or any other kind of weather that goes on.
oh yeah. Well, this is not like NASCAR. We're not racing in Mexico on the road course down there, by the way.
Yeah, and John prefers the dirt track. Do you have a goal of how many tracks you'd like to visit before you return here to beautiful Central Florida?
Well, I'm going to be at Wayne County Speedway tomorrow. They're running what they call up here now Speed Week, and in Speed Weeks, it's all these sprint cars go to the different tracks in Ohio. They were rained out for the first 2 nights this past weekend when it started. Last night was their first race, and so on, and they go through the rest of this week and whatnot. So it's nothing but sprint cars, and so which is still my favorite kind of cars to see, and whatnot. But you're right, the dirt is suspect to any kind of foul weather messes up a dirt track and so on. There's one track that I followed down in Williams Grove, PA. I was there a couple years ago, and it's a track that's been around for well beyond 50 years. And I mean, they've been rained out 90% of their races, and they started racing down there in April. They start early down in middle Pennsylvania with sprint car racing, and so on. They've been rained out unbelievable number of weeks, and so on. So it's really got to put a financial hurt on these tracks because they're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Well, John, we've seen racetracks struggling over the years as uh, development encroaches around them and people move in and complain about the race cars on Saturday night. How are the tracks doing that you've seen? Are they making their money? Are they able to keep the doors open?
Well, I'll tell you, this track last night, Millstream, and it's in Findlay, Ohio. Uh, that place was mobbed. What they have at both ends of the track, they have built up a bank quite high. And so a lot of people bring their lawn chairs, and that's where they sit rather than sitting in the bleachers. But I'm telling you that this place was mobbed last night. Now, it could be because the other races were rained out and people wanted to say, okay, I'm going to go no matter what. But I mean, it was a huge crowd there last night. I want to tell you something that happened to me that's never happened before in my probably 60 some years of going to races. Walk up to the ticket booth like everybody, and you get in line, you're ready, you pull out your money, you're ready to buy your ticket. And there's a fellow in front of me, and he bought my ticket and his ticket, and he turned around and he said, "Happy Father's Day."
Oh,
Yeah, it was, I mean, I was like, I didn't know what to say. I mean, I was shocked. Okay. I was shocked. And I couldn't thank him enough, but I mean, he didn't have to do that, but he did. And I just, he was by himself and whatnot. And as soon as he paid for it, he just walked off and gave me the ticket. And I was just beyond belief. But then another thing, sitting in the grandstand last night, and this track it was a nice track. It was a half-mile track, very good speed and all that. And they had tons of cars. And but it was dusty. Oh my God, it was so dusty. It was unbelievable. But anyhow, I'm sitting there about halfway through the night, and some guy comes up and taps me on his shoulder, and he said, "Hey, I think you might like this." And he hands me a race book from USAC from 1974.
oh my.
And he said, "You'll probably find some good, interesting reading in there." And I thanked him, and I thought, holy cow, what's going on? I've got these people that are coming up to me and doing things. And I said, maybe I look sympathetic or something. I
Did
don't know.
did you have your Trump hat on?
No, I didn't have my Trump hat
Oh
on.
my.
I had a racing hat on. I don't want to you take a Trump hat or something like that to one of these dirt tracks, and you'll probably never get the dirt out of it. Okay. But I mean, I was just kind of shocked that, and I certainly I'm overwhelmed and appreciative beyond belief. But I mean, I've never had those kind of things happen to me before.
A 50-year-old race program just handed to you. They promised somebody looked at you and said, I bet this guy would really enjoy that.
Yeah, it could be, and maybe it was this. I had started out with a T-shirt on. As it got colder night, you put on something else. But I had a T-shirt on it that celebrates the old time racers down in Daytona Beach and so on. And maybe he saw that T-shirt and thought, well, that fella's into old time stuff. Maybe I'll give him this magazine. So I don't know, but I mean, I was very appreciative, but I was just kind of overwhelmed by it all. And it was just, unbelievable.
Were you able to ascertain? I mean, did they say where the people were from? Did the drivers did they haul for a while to get to the track where you were? Or did they
Yeah,
were
well, since it's Ohio Speed Weeks, a lot of the racers come from Ohio, everywhere in Ohio. But then also because of the proximity to Pennsylvania, there was a number of race cars there from Pennsylvania. So most of it now the drivers come from California. They come from all over because a lot of these guys, they're good. They're professional drivers, and they get hired by somebody to drive their race car. And so the drivers come from everywhere, but the bulk of the cars in this area, come from Ohio and Pennsylvania.
well, I'll tell you that actually, an interesting thing that happened to me is while you were there, Sandra and myself got invited by the Automobile Racing Club of Florida to go out to the Sebring International Raceway and watch the opening hours of the Le Mans race in France. And
Ah,
it was held in the Gallery of Legends, where they usually put the vintage sports car racing cars in. And there were a number of very interesting cars. There were some Porsches. There was the 917 Porsche that was used in the Le Mans movies as a camera car. There was a nice collection of vehicles inside and a car show outside. We had a chance to have breakfast and some lunch over there. And Brian Redmond, two-time winner of the 12 Hours of Sebring, and Charles Mendez, who won it once, were there as the guest speakers and guest hosts, and they walked around. So we were sitting in air conditioned comfort. There was very little dirt where we were, John, I have to tell you. But
well, you know what they say. Uh, Dirt is for racing, asphalt's for getting there.
yes,
Okay.
I've heard people say that. Yes. So
But
we had a wonderful, and I think Sandra and I will be doing a Florida Fun Travel podcast on that as well. So where do you go? Where do you go from here to watch racing?
tonight it's again Ohio Speed Weeks. I go to Wayne County Speedway, and it's not far from Wapakoneta. I'm staying in Wapakoneta, but it's only about 10 miles away at Wayne County Speedway. But it'll be the same cars that were there last night, maybe a few more from other locations. But The bulk of it is going to be the same cars that were there last night, and it's all part of Ohio Speed Weeks. They run this for a whole week, and it's a separate kind of prize money and associated with this and whatnot. So there'll be guys are racing for the points because there's money involved in this. Beside, a fast qualifier last night got 1,500, which is pretty good. I think the winner last night got around 6 or 7 thousand, and all the purses are going to be up in that ballpark at these different tracks and so on. So it's going to be kind of interesting. There's a few guys that because I watch a lot of this on dirt racing all year long. I know a lot of these cars and drivers from seeing them racing at various tracks. I watch racing almost every week from Attica, Ohio Speedway, and other places. So I've seen a lot of these guys. I'm familiar with them. And there's a few of them that I root for and so on that I followed for the last few years and whatnot. And I was rooting for them last night, and they didn't do bad. The two guys that I was rooting for came in second and third. So it wasn't bad overall.
So, because you know kind of where you're going, are you able to kind of scout out the tracks, figure where you want to sit, maybe the kind of swag, hats or shirts, whatever you want to buy, and are you able to kind of do some reconnoitering before you go out and watch the race?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I sit down and plan these trips probably 2 months in advance and whatnot because you have to have logistically, you got to have a place to stay. So you make sure you get that thing accomplished. So you have a place to put your head at night and whatnot. Then I know that I scout out the tracks where I want to go. The three here that I wanted to go to this weekend, like I said, Saturday night was rained out. Last night looked like it's going to be okay. It's supposed to be anyhow. And then after tonight, tomorrow, I'm going to take a side trip because I want to get some stuff up in Amish country in Ohio or in Indiana. I'm sorry, and then make my way tomorrow over towards my daughter's.
Now, will she be going to some of these tracks with you when you get to Pennsylvania?
Yep, yep. This weekend, we're planning on going Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we'll do that. We've done it almost every year that I've come up. I've done this now for about 6 or 7 years, and we always take a weekend where we try to go to three tracks and see three different kind of races and so on. So yeah, that plans are like that every year, and she doesn't get to go only when I come up there. So that's why we do this.
Well, John, I got to tell you that being the co-host on this very important podcast, we're going to have to make sure you can get some press credentials so you can get back in the pits and talk to some of the drivers and get the media end experience of these races.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've been going to races since my dad took me when I was 4 years old. That's how I got hooked. And so here I am 82 years later and I'm still doing it. Okay.
Now, you've been doing this, but traveling around, seeing the sights, stocking up on your racing and your Amish food collection. Have you had a chance to look at many of the headlines? Have you been have a chance to see what's going on in the world?
Oh yeah. Well, I listen to talk radio while I'm traveling. The good thing about it, all these the cars that I have, they have Sirius XM, so you don't have to worry about losing a station. And it's talk radio, and of course, all the pundits are talking about everything associated with Israel. Of course, the demonstrations in LA and the rest of the parts of the country. And then when I'm parked in a motel, like Saturday, it rained, so I had nothing much better to do than sit there and watch news on the TV, and that's what I did. So I keep up with stuff quite frequently and often. So I'm never too far from what's going on in the world. That's for sure.
Well, before we started this call, I understand that you spent about 10 or 15 minutes on the phone with our friend from United West, Tom
Yeah,
Trento, who
yeah.
is an Israeli expert. What's his take on all this?
Well, he believes that, and I asked him specifically because everything you're hearing now and what you know about how the Iranians built these nuclear sites, they are like miles underground, okay, and under massive amounts of rock and everything. And so his thought, and from what he's hearing from the people that he knows, that in the end, in order to absolutely destroy these nuclear sites, it's going to take what we call, buster bunkers, shells that only the United States, I guess, has the capability of launching these things, and that he feels that in the end, in order to totally destroy these nuclear sites, that's what's going to happen. That the United States is going to have to help step in and use these bunker buster bombs and absolutely destroy the nuclear sites that the Iranians have, because he doesn't believe that the Iranians themselves have the uh, have the wherewithal to destroy these underground bunkers because of where they're located and how deep in the earth they are.
Yeah, I did read a report before we started that there's some of those bunker busters had been sent to Israel, but I have not gotten confirmation that that is an accurate report. It's this puts me in mind of what my grandparents must have felt in World War II when they would hear rumors of this happening or that happening, and not really being able to know until they went and saw the newsreels on Saturday at the Bijou Theater to find out what had happened, a couple of weeks ago, to find out whether they were right or not. But I did see some of those bunker busters may have been delivered to Israel. But I have heard that that the Israelis have gone in and really decimated the top command echelon of the Iranians, including 9 of their nuclear scientists. So their ability to proceed has certainly been slowed, even if the infrastructure is still there.
Right. Well, the other thing is, I'm not sure from what I understand, and I could be wrong on this, but what I understand is that it's not only the bombs that you have to have the planes that are capable of carrying these bombs. And I don't know that Israel has the planes that are capable of carrying the bombs. So if that's the case, then the delivery is going to have to be done on these things. They're going to have to be done by the United States.
Well,
And
I've seen reports, and I heard it again this morning. I was listening to some talk radio on the internet as well, and it appears that Iran has gone to Qatar and Yemen, I think, asking the United States to intervene and call Israel off because they're so beat up. And I don't know that Donald Trump's on his way to the G7 summit. I don't know that the United States is going to get involved. I think they just might let this unfold as it goes.
well, you're right. One of the last headlines I saw in the motel before I left this morning was that Iran is asking Israel and the United States to sit down and have some, I won't call them peace talks, but some kind of, stop the fighting talks and whatnot. If that's true, then I'm sure the United States would certainly be ready to step in. Israel, I think if they were ready to step in, it would have to be under certain circumstances, because they're not going to give Iran anything after this is over. Because the situation, from what I've watched and heard, Iran is hitting nothing but residential sites in Israel, where Israel has tried not to hit any residential sites, but only the nuclear sites and the military sites that they want to take out.
Well, if you watch the presentation from Bibi Netanyahu, he has no trust at all in Iran at all,
No,
and
no.
it does not seem, at least the presentation that I saw, I was watching it on Right Side Broadcasting. He doesn't have any intention of stopping until the job is done, and this again puts me in mind of World War II, and as a child, I grew up on a steady diet of cowboy movies and World War II movies and information about World War II, because it was very still very new. Still, a lot of the guys that my dad knew had been in the war, and one of the things that happened was that literally hours before the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese had been in the Oval Office talking to Roosevelt about about peace negotiations, and they had come out, and literally hours after they left the White House, that's when the attack on Pearl Harbor happened. So I can see the Israelis saying, "You may want to sit down and talk, but we have no reasonable expectation that you're just not stalling for time to get your stuff in a row so you can come back at us."
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because this whole thing has started because of Iran desire to have nuclear weapons and nuclear bombs. And they know, Israel knows that if they dropped one or two nuclear bombs in Israel, that would be the end of Israel. I mean, it would be decimated, and there would practically be nobody left because the country's not that big to begin with. And when you compare the size between Israel and Iran, oh my God, it's like 100 to 1 size wise, and the number of people that they've got, and so on. So yeah, you're right. I mean, the end result has to be the annihilation of the Iranians' nuclear material and nuclear sites and so on. And again, in the end, that may take these big buster bunker bombs that the United States has, and that may be the crowning blow that's going to have to happen. Now, what Tom said, and I was kind of a little bit surprised about this, that he said that the feedback is actually they would be better off if they did not kill the Ayatollah, because they need him to be the whipping boy for the sentiment in the country that does not want war and is against what's going on. But he said, unfortunately, there's still enough people in Iran that believe in the Ayatollah and what he's doing that you're not going to be able to affect regime change like overnight. So he said it would be better if the Ayatollah remained in charge and let him become the whipping boy for the end result of this.
Well, John, I'll tell you that one of the things is that one of the things about it is that to put it in perspective, Israel Israel is the same size as the state of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so, how many bombs do you think you would have to drop on New Jersey to put it to absolutely destroy everything there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, they showed that map again this morning of Israel and Iran. And I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it is Iran is huge, and the number of people that they have are in the multi millions, where Israel has a few million people. So number one, they're outmanned, but also when it comes to nuclear weapons, we saw what happened in Japan at the end of World War II when we dropped a few nuclear bombs over there and what it did. And so you can imagine just one or two of those nuclear bombs in Israel would be the end of that country, would be the end. There'd be practically no way to stop it. And so Israel has to have the elimination of the nuclear weapons and their facilities in order for this to be what you would call, let's say, a victory. Anything short of that for Israel is not going to be acceptable.
Yeah, and we're just going to have to see how that plays out because, as I said, the last picture I saw of Donald Trump, he was getting on the jet, getting ready to go to the G7 summit and talk to the Canadian Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, that's going to be the other thing, because I'm sure that these countries that are, as they come together, they're going to want to know, okay, what does the United States, plan on doing here? Now, whether Trump's going to, drop that information or not, who knows? But the other thing is going to be the fact that, they want to get a sense of, okay, how bad is this and what impact is it going to have? Because remember one thing, Iran is a large producer of oil. That's the only thing they've got beside, when you have people like Obama and Biden who gave them billions and millions of dollars. Okay. But I mean, as far as what they've got, oil is all they've got as far as any potential income goes. So whether Israel is planning on destroying their refineries and so on, I don't know what the plan is there, but certainly that would cripple them, but it wouldn't take away the nuclear threat that they have over Israel and the rest of the world.
And as you pointed out, a lot of this began under the Obama administration, and the promise that they were only going to use this for power for their citizens, and now we're finding out that's absolutely not true. Not one word out of Obama, not one word out of Biden. Although our senators Ashley Moody and Rick Scott have spoken out, even Representative Randy Fine has spoken out. So you're seeing some from the Republicans in the administration in the government here are speaking up, but nothing from the guy who signed the deal with Iran to allow them to get to where they are today.
Right. Absolutely. No, and this is the problem. Those that created the problem, all right, are nowhere to be seen at this point and nowhere to be involved because they did what they wanted, was to create the dirty work and leave the United States in the midst of all of these issues that Trump now has to try and deal with. And this is where, I know people want instant results and instant, solutions to all the problems. There's just no way that all of that's going to be able to happen in a short period of time under the Trump regime and under the Trump administration. It's not going to happen. They're going to work at it. And I think they've made great progress. Certainly, the number one issue, I think, on the ballot was elimination of a lot of the illegals, which now that's created all this uproar and turmoil and everything else that's going on in the country. But again, Trump came out this morning and said, look, I want ICE to continue doing absolutely what they're doing, and that is to round up all of these illegal criminals and get them shipped off and deported out of the United States.
And we're going to talk about that and more tomorrow. John Larsen on the road up in Ohio doing his annual sweep of dirt tracks. John, good to have you with us. Hold on, and we'll get ready to do tomorrow's program. Don't go away.
All righty.
You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show, and we continue our pursuit of truth, justice, and the American way. And we'll see you next time.